Hello team. One question that we can ask is what can be automated? And the good news is that most tasks related to software and data can be automated. And there is a push to run as much as possible in software. So we've talked about virtualization and how it's very important in cloud computing. And there is effort in making other parts of the infrastructure run on software. One of these parts is the network. So these days we have a lot of research going on software-defined networks and how we can control our networks with software. And we've talked about this idea of a lights-out data center, which doesn't have any humans in them. And the main idea there was to automate most of the tasks and operate the data center remotely. So virtual resources are mostly software, and many of the tasks related to virtual resources can be automated. Creation, deletion, modification, and reconfiguration of virtual machines, virtual disks, all of these virtual resources, we can automate their management. And autoscaling, allocating more or less resources to an application depending on how much demand it has right now, is something that we get from automation. So it's a nice application of automation. Monitoring and accounting is also something that can be automated. And cloud providers measure a lot, so they have a lot of monitoring infrastructure. For example, cloud providers use monitoring information to bill customers. Depending on how many resources the customer used, that's how much the customer will get charged. Cloud providers also automate the storage and indexing of monitoring information, as this information is very useful for troubleshooting and post-mortem analysis. So whenever a network failure occurs or a hotspot, we can go to the logs to see what happened. And we can even have automated systems that will look at the logs and identify these failures for us. And cloud providers can also automate the identification of trends and projecting demand based on the monitoring information. So this might help the cloud provider, for example, answer what resources are in high demand and what resources it should buy, or when it will need to expand capacity depending on how many customers are coming in. So it's insufficient to configure the infrastructure to serve customers. The cloud providers strive to optimize the usage of their resources to maximize profits. For example, balancing load across servers, or aggregating resources on servers so that we can reduce power and move virtual machines and storage around so that we make traffic inside the data center local. Let's go over these examples again. So one example that we've seen before is that of load balancing. So here in time T1, I have the initial configuration of the data center. And at time T2, VM A2 is reconfigured so that it now needs more resources from the server. So now VM A1 and VM B2 don't fit together on server 1 anymore. So the cloud provider needs to move one of these VMs to a server that has more capacity. And this is usually something that we want to automate because these reconfigurations of the virtual machines can happen at any time. So in this case here, we're going to move VM B2 to server 2, and then both VMs, all VMs will be okay. We can also move VMs from one server to another to make traffic local inside the data center. So we've seen that if virtual machines are running in different pods, then traffic has to go all the way up in the network. So what we can try to do is move virtual machines inside the same pod, and if possible, even inside the same rack, so that traffic is entirely local to that rack. There's also a lot of tasks related to safety and recovery in data centers, and these can be automated. For example, we can schedule periodic backup of customer data. So if the customer wants to get a copy of his database from last week, we just have that stored. There's also data replication that we need to do to improve performance of applications like Nmap reduce and to ensure resilience against disk failures. So data replication is also automated. There's fast rerouting that we need when network devices fail. So instead of reconfiguring the network, we can have an automated system that will do the rerouting for us. There's also failure detection from monitoring data. This is something that we can automate, and we can even go further and have anomaly detection techniques from monitoring data. Then we can do a lot more things. For example, we can detect partially malfunctioning devices. We can identify buggy applications, misbehaving virtual machines, like virtual machines that are using more resources than they should. We can identify security breaches and attacks. So this, we need monitoring that we talked about before that can be automated. We also need some intelligence on top of the monitored data to do this anomaly detection for us. Updating software is very important to make sure that there are no security vulnerabilities on a device. And updating software is one of the things that we can automate. So these days, most operating systems have automated updates, like Windows have automatic updates, Linux has automatic updates, and they usually just work. This ensures that everyone has the latest features and gets the best performance, but more importantly, that the security patches are applied to their devices. We also have mechanisms to automatically upgrade software installed by customers. And some providers sell tooling to automate deployment and integration of applications. And this is one of the main functionalities in platform as a service. And enforcing security policies is also something that can be automated. For example, applying security patches to fix vulnerabilities also fits within software updates that we just talked about. Configuring firewalls and access control lists to make sure that unauthorized access to VMs and servers is blocked. Manage secrets, certificates, and encryption keys. So this is sensitive information. So if you manage them automatically, there's less opportunities for error. And configuring virtual private networks and encryption to make communication secure between servers.